Good evening, night owls, insomniacs, and the lonely souls keeping the world turning while the rest of the city sleeps. You are tuned in to the Midnight Frequency. I'm your host, Richard.
There's a certain kind of silence that only exists between 3 and 4 a.m. It's heavy. It presses against your ears. If you work the graveyard shift, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The world feels thinner, like the rules of reality get a little loose when the sun is on the other side of the planet.
Tonight, we're clocking in. We have 3 stories from people who took the night shift thinking it would be easy money. Just sit there, watch a monitor, stock a shelf. Easy, right?
Until you realize you're the only living thing in the building, or at least you thought you were. So pour that 4th cup of stale coffee, lock the booth door, and don't look at the reflections in the glass. Let's get into it.
I used to work the graveyard shift at a gas station off I-80 in Nebraska. It was one of those middle-of-nowhere stops where you get maybe 3 cars a night, usually just truckers needing diesel or caffeine. It was boring, but I was in college and needed the time to study. It was a Tuesday, around 2:15 a.m. The place was dead silent, except for the aggressive hum of the slushy machine. I was reading a textbook on the counter when the door chime went off. Ding dong. I looked up. A man had walked in. He was tall, wearing a heavy gray trench coat that looked too warm for the season. He didn't look at me. He didn't nod. He just walked straight past the counter and into the aisles towards the back, where the automotive supplies and beer coolers were. I didn't think much of it. Weirdos are part of the job description. I went back to my book. About 10 minutes passed. I realized I hadn't heard the door chime again. The guy was still in the store. I looked up at the security monitor. Camera 3 covered the back aisle. He was just standing there. He wasn't looking at the products. He wasn't on his phone. He was standing perfectly still, facing the wall of motor oil. His arms were down by his sides. He looked like a statue. "Can I help you find something, sir?" I called out. My voice echoed in the empty store. No movement. No reaction. A cold feeling started to creep up my neck. You know that primal instinct that tells you something is wrong? It was screaming at me. I watched him on the monitor for another 5 minutes. He didn't shift his weight. He didn't scratch an itch. It was unnatural. Humans are never that still. We breathe. We sway slightly. This guy was frozen. I decided I needed to do something. I grabbed the baseball bat we kept under the counter, mostly for peace of mind, and walked out from behind the glass. "Sir, we're going to be closing the aisles for cleaning soon," I lied. I walked down the center aisle. As I got closer, the smell hit me. It wasn't body odor. It smelled like ozone, like the air after a lightning strike, mixed with something metallic, like old pennies. I stopped about 10 feet away from him. "Sir?" Slowly, agonizingly slowly, he turned his head. Just his head. His body stayed facing the motor oil. His skin was pale, almost translucent, but it was his eyes that froze me. They were wide open, unblinking, and fixed on a point somewhere above my left shoulder. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me. Then he smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. It was just a mechanical stretching of lips. "Just browsing," he whispered. His voice sounded wet. He turned back to the shelf. I backed away. I retreated all the way to the counter and locked the safety door. I watched him on the monitor for another 20 minutes. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Finally, at 3:05 a.m., he turned around walked to the front door, and left. He didn't buy anything. As he pushed the door open, I looked at the glass. It was dark outside, pitch black. The store lights were bright. His reflection should have been clear in the glass door. As he pushed it, I saw the reflection of the door handle. I saw the reflection of the chip rack behind him. But where his body should have been in the glass, there was just the dark parking lot. I quit the next morning via text. I don't care if it was a trick of the light. I'm never working nights again.
Man, the reflection thing always gets me. It's a classic trope, right? Vampires, spirits. But scientifically, if you see something in the mirror, it doesn't. What are you actually looking at? A hallucination? Or something that simply doesn't interact with light the way we do? Nebraska is full of those long, empty stretches. Plenty of time for the mind to break, or plenty of space for things to hide. This next story comes from a security guard, and let me tell you, malls at night are liminal spaces. They are designed for crowds, for noise, for consumerism. When you take the people away, the architecture feels wrong, like the building itself is waiting for something to happen.
I worked security at the Oak Ridge Mall for 3 years. It was an easy gig. The mall had been declining for a while, lots of empty storefronts, not much foot traffic even during the day. At night, it was a ghost town. My job was simple: walk the perimeter, check the external doors, and do a sweep of the interior floors every 2 hours. The weirdest part about malls at night is the mannequins. During the day, you don't notice them, but at night, with the main lights off and only the emergency lights casting those long shadows, they look like they're watching you. There was this one clothing store on the second floor, Moda Vibe. It had gone out of business a month prior, but they hadn't cleared out the fixtures yet. There were about 6 mannequins left in the front display window, behind the glass gate. Every night, I walked past Moda Vibe. Every night, the mannequins were in the same poses. 3 standing, 2 sitting, one in the back with its arm raised like it was waving. One Thursday, I was doing my 2 a.m. round. I walked past the store, shining my flashlight through the grate. I stopped. The mannequin in the back, the one with its arm raised. Its arm was down. I frowned, lowering my light. Maybe I was remembering it wrong. I hadn't slept well the day before. I convinced myself I was just tired. I finished my round and went back to the security office. But it bugged me. I pulled up the camera feed for the second floor. The camera angle was grainy and black and white, but I could see the Moda Vibe storefront. I zoomed in. The mannequin's arm was definitely down. I rewound the footage to the start of my shift, 10 p.m. I watched the tape in fast forward. 10 p.m., arm up. 11 p.m., arm up. 12 a.m., arm up. 1:14 a.m., the video glitched. Just a second of static. 1:15 a.m., arm down. My skin went cold. Nobody had entered the mall. The alarm system hadn't tripped. I stared at the live feed, and as I watched, the mannequin shifted. It wasn't a big movement. It just turned its head slightly to the left, toward the security camera. I jumped out of my chair. "Who's there?" I yelled at the monitor like an idiot. I had to go check. It's the job. I grabbed my taser and my radio. I walked back up to the second floor. The silence was deafening. My footsteps sounded like gunshots on the tile. I approached Moda Vibe. I shined my light into the display. There were 5 mannequins. I counted again. 1, 2, 3 standing, 2 sitting. The one in the back was gone. The display case was locked. The metal grate was down and locked. There was no way out. I scanned the store interior with my flashlight beam. Shadows danced around clothes racks and empty counters. "Security!" I yelled. "Come out!" Nothing. Then I heard it. A soft, plastic clack, 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 like hard shoes on tile. But it wasn't coming from inside the store. It was coming from the darkness of the hallway behind me. I spun around, flashlight cutting through the dark. The beam hit a figure standing about 20 yards away, near the food court entrance. It was the mannequin. It was standing in the middle of the hallway, perfectly still. Its plastic face was smooth and featureless, but in the harsh light of my flashlight, it looked menacing. I blinked, and in the split second my eyes were closed, it moved. It didn't walk, it lurched, like a stop-motion animation missing frames. It was suddenly 10 feet closer. I didn't wait to see it move again. I turned and ran. I sprinted for the emergency exit stairwell, burst through the doors, and didn't stop until I was in my car in the parking lot. I called the police. They searched the building. They found nothing. No intruder. No signs of entry. But here's the kicker. When they checked the display case at Moda Vibe, all 6 mannequins were there. The one in the back had its arm raised. They told me I must have been hallucinating from fatigue. Maybe, but I know what I saw on that tape. And I know the sound of plastic feet on a tile floor. I never went back to pick up my last paycheck.
Plastic feet on tile. That specific sound, it triggers something, doesn't it? The uncanny valley, an evolutionary defense mechanism. It begs the question, what did our ancestors encounter in the wild that looked human but wasn't? What were we evolving to be afraid of? This last story, this one is personal. Not for me, but for anyone who has ever worked in a hospital. Hospitals are places of life and death. The energy there is chaotic, but the basement, the archives, that's where the history is buried. And sometimes it doesn't want to stay buried.
I work in medical records for a large old hospital in Chicago. Most of the new stuff is digital, but we have decades of paper files stored in the sub-basement. It's a labyrinth down there. Concrete walls, flickering lights, and miles of metal shelving. It was 3:30 a.m. I was down there looking for a patient file from 1988 for a legal case. The sub-basement is completely isolated. No cell service. The only way to communicate is through the old landline intercoms mounted on the walls every few aisles. I was in aisle 402, deep in the archives. It was quiet, just the sound of the ventilation and my own breathing. Then the phone on the wall at the end of the aisle rang. Reeing. It was a jarring, mechanical sound. It echoed off the concrete. I stared at it. Nobody calls down here at 3 a.m. The nurses upstairs just send email requests. I walked over and picked it up. Medical records. This is Dan. Thick, heavy white noise. Hello? I asked. Through the static, I heard a voice. It was faint, like it was coming from a great distance. Cold. It was a whisper, a woman's voice. I can't hear you. Who is this? I asked, gripping the receiver. So cold. Let me out. I slammed the phone down. My heart was racing. I figured it was a prank. Some intern upstairs messing with the archive guy. Ha ha. Very funny. I went back to searching for the file. 5 minutes later, reeing. It was a different phone this time. ASL 405, 3 rows over. I ignored it. It rang for a full minute before stopping. Then aisle 406 rang. Then 407. The ringing was getting closer. It was jumping from phone to phone. moving down the rows towards me. I dropped the file I was holding. This wasn't a prank. The switchboard doesn't work like that. You can't transfer calls that fast. The phone right next to me, aisle 402, started to ring. I stared at it. The red light on the receiver was flashing. Ringing. I don't know why, but I picked it up. I didn't say anything. I just listened. The static was gone. The line was crystal clear. I heard breathing. Slow. It sounded wet, like someone with fluid in their lungs. And then I heard a sound that made my blood freeze. I heard the squeak of a metal file cabinet drawer opening. It wasn't coming from the earpiece. It was coming from the aisle I was standing in. About 20 feet behind me, I was holding the phone to my ear, and through the phone, I heard the same squeak. Whoever, whatever, was on the phone was in the room with me. They were using the internal line from the maintenance desk at the back of the aisle. I slowly turned around, dropping the receiver. It swung on its cord, hitting the wall. Thud, thud. At the far end of the aisle, in the shadows, the maintenance desk phone was off the hook. I could see the cord dangling, and standing next to the desk, barely visible in the gloom, was a figure in a hospital gown. It was facing the wall, its back to me. The phone I had dropped was still swinging, and from the speaker, hanging by my knees, I heard the voice loud and clear. Found you. I didn't look back. I ran. I scrambled up the stairs, burst into the ER lobby, and hyperventilated in front of the triage nurse. I refused to go back down there alone. When security went down to check, the phones were all on the hooks. But the file drawer for 1988, the one I was looking for, was open, and the file was gone.
Found you. 2 words you never want to hear when you're alone in the dark. The hospital claims it was a squatter, a homeless person who snuck in. That's the official story. It makes people feel safe. It explains the unexplainable. But we know better. We know that some shifts never end, some employees never clock out, and some patients never get discharged. If you are working tonight, do me a favor. Check your surroundings. Check the corners of the room. And if the phone rings, maybe just let it go to voicemail. This has been The Midnight Frequency. I'm Richard. Stay safe and stay awake.